Right, I had been saying we are going to get on to the transfer madness as we've been going this whole show. So I am now going to move on to the double deal that took the transfer world by storm last night, and that is the news that Tottenham are trying to do a double deal for Savinho and Omar Marmoush from Manchester City. Guys, the transfer fees involved in these are frankly absolutely nuts. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll find the correct. God, my internet is a little bit playing tricks with me here. Okay, here we go. Carlos Reynoso. Sorry for being slow, guys. Just one of those nights. Just one of those nights. Carlos Reynoso. Here we go. Reporters indicate that Tottenham is negotiating the signing of Savinho for 100 million euros. By the way, this is being widely reported, not just by Carlos Reynoso, but I just put this in because this is one that is really emphasizing this 100 million euro fee, which we have seen around the place. I think we've seen 93 million pounds and 100 million euros. This is absolutely nuts, guys. This is absolutely nuts for a player with 3 Premier League goals. I, for one, have always looked at Savinho and thought there's a player in there. He's definitely exciting to watch, Savinho, and definitely a talent. But I don't know what to say. If it's going to cost you 100 million euros to buy someone that has 3 Premier League goals, then what's happened? And as I'm speaking, I'm imagining people saying, well, how much do you think Rio's worth? But I just, Rio's 18. I think Savinho is 22. Tell me if I'm wrong, guys. And it's just the fact that he's not had a look in at Manchester City. Like, Rio is an academy player who has developed, and you've seen development in his time at Liverpool. Savinho is nothing more than what he was when he arrived at Manchester City, apart from having 2 seasons of Premier League football on his belt, under his belt. But he is the same player. So it feels astonishing to me, these figures involved. Absolutely astonishing. Rob, AFC in the house, thank you so much for being here. Scarlett is going to be back on EPL Index live on Saturday night, so not tomorrow night, but the night after. She will be here. I'll be on Anfield Index. It's the Katz Roberts twins taking over all over the place. But yeah, we are here. We love hanging out with you guys. We love broadcasting live about football. That is what we love to do. Other comments here. Dave, I will circle back to this. I'm going to start and circle back when we talk about Liverpool again. But for now, let's just focus on the Savinho and Marmoush situation. Cole, I'm going to come back to your comment as well when we talk about Liverpool. Memorable Tiger says, Tottenham out here ruining our market further because their balls are bigger than ours. I know why you'd say that, Memorable Tiger, and don't get me wrong, like watching Spurs just stick the money on the table for the players it's ballsy. It's ballsy. That's probably the only way to describe it. It is absolutely ballsy to do it. But then again, you look at it and you think they've overpaid for Tonali, they've overpaid for Fernandes, they're going to overpay for Savinho. They look like they might overpay for Cody Gakpo, who, by the way, if Savinho is worth 100 million euros, God knows what Cody Gakpo is worth. And I think that's certainly, just like people have been talking all summer about the Morgan Rogers valuation being a benchmark, who now suddenly looks like a bargain, by the way, next to this. I think Liverpool can certainly talk about the Savinho benchmark, especially if Spurs still want to go on to sign a third forward, which apparently they still do, after Marmoush as well. So it's really, really quite astonishing to me, these numbers. And I suppose if you look at these and you look at the 50 million being quoted for Yankuba Minter, it maybe doesn't feel quite as insane. So Dave, 1WA76 says, we are just going for players that are available. Why don't we just bid for a player in that position that we like? Barca did it to Man City for Rodri. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Dave. Liverpool are doing a lot of their work in the shadows. I think you've got to give them a kind of hats off to that, because right now a lot of Tottenham's business seems to be dragging out in the public eye, and I don't think that's particularly good for the buying club. It only benefits the selling club. Sleepy James says, to be fair, everyone is overpaying. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the inflation in transfer fees is just utterly, utterly astonishing. Like, I'm old enough to remember, guys, when 20 million meant you were signing an absolute worldie. So these fees really do feel crazy to me. But again, if you look at that and you compare Savinho and Minter and who you would rather have, I think suddenly that Minter fee doesn't look quite as insane. But I just don't really understand what I mean, no, maybe that's the wrong thing to say. I do understand what Tottenham are trying to do. Tottenham are trying to build a legitimate Premier League team capable of getting 75 points and finishing in the Champions League, because that is what they feel they need to do, and they do as a football club. But it's a massive, massive roll of the dice, what they're doing, because if it doesn't come off, they will be in financial trouble. It is truly, truly, they are, this, I called this video winger roulette, and Tottenham are rolling the dice. They are rolling the dice. I wanted to share a tab with, here we go, from Vastnath, of what Tottenham's squad depth would be like if they do manage to make the signings that they've been tipped to make. What do we think of this, guys, of this squad depth here for Tottenham? So this is them assuming that they're going to sign Cody Gakpo, by the way, which I'm 50-50 on. I don't know if it will happen, especially now that we're looking at these fees. But this is the teams that they reckon they're going to be playing. Omar Marmoush is going to figure somewhere in this. Potentially that would mean Gakpo shunted out to the right. I don't know, but they've got a serious amount of players on their hands here. I think for what it's worth, Andy Robertson will be starting over Udogie. And Kulusevski hasn't kicked a ball for a very, very long time. But there are lots of good players here. There really are lots of good players here. The only thing you'd say is, whilst there is growth in some of them, and Kudus is another one who's suffered with injuries, he's a player that I love. I would love to have him at Liverpool. You're looking at it, and as what people said, it's an 82-pack team. It's the team that you assemble when you want to finish in the top four. And I think the problem with that is, what if you don't? What if you don't? We've seen good teams fail to finish in the top four. It's not as easy as just having the best players, especially if you sign this level of new players, you have to settle that new attack. I think one of the reasons why, as a fan base of Liverpool fans, we're feeling so negative is because when you sign new players, you always imagine the very, very best version of them. But what if you don't get that? And it's quite possible, and it's happened to Tottenham, and it's happened to Liverpool, that you don't always get the best version. Cole says, "Will Richarlison keep happy? I wonder." I think he's probably on his way out. Richarlison. Solanke isn't even listed here. Solanke is injured again. But yeah, I think I agree. By the way, Harley, it is a mile better than our bench. Rob G, AFC, with some interesting context here, saying in MLB baseball there was a player who was signed for 700 million. Insane. These football prices ultimately can't price out other sides, and that's not good. Ultimately can price out other sides, and that's not good for competition. I agree with you. It just feels like a runaway train. Sleepy James says Archie Gray looks like a decent player. All Road Runner says, cheers, Lola, another great show. Catch you next time. I wish we could have kept you for the whole time, mate, but thank you very, very much for being here in the comments nonetheless. Yeah, I don't look at that and think title challenge, if I'm honest, because it's a limited group. There are players with potential, but someone like Cody Gakpo, you know what you're going to get with him, and that's the reason why he's even in the conversation to leave Liverpool. Likewise, Tonali, Maddison. There are lots of players within that where you can say you kind of know what you're getting with them. So, yeah, this is Spurs' big gamble on Champions League football. This isn't a play to win the league, and the figures are really, really, really insane. Especially when you think about Omar Marmoush in there as well. It is intimidating when you consider the state of Liverpool's squad by comparison. But let's just hope they have a plan. Let's just hope they have a plan. Dave says, I like Endrick, Mbai, Takafasa Kubo, Brahim Diaz, Antonio Nusa, or Ryan, all better than Minty can't cross. That's made me laugh there, Dave. Round of applause for you. I like all of these players. I think what we have to make peace with as Liverpool fans, and I know lots of you in the chat here are Liverpool fans, I think we have to make peace with the fact that it probably is going to be a bit of a left field signing, or it probably is going to be something like that. I think Liverpool will sign a right winger. I think actually somehow I've ended up back on Liverpool, but that is my want as a Liverpool fan, and you guys lots of you are Liverpool fans. By the way, Lou is going to be over on Anfield Index at 9 o'clock, so do join in for him. I know he's really looking forward to chatting to you guys. He's had a really, really busy week at work, so he'll be glad to chill out and chat to you guys over on Anfield Index. But yeah, I think this all circles back to the fact that I think Liverpool are trying to sign two. And they're trying to sign two and keep Gakpo, I think, because I struggle to see a world in which Tottenham can do this double deal for over 100 million. I can't remember the exact figure being touted now for the double deal, but Indy's putting health warnings about it out there. But yeah, the double deal is probably going to be around about 150 million. I just can't see them having the spare cash then for Gakpo. But someone said, where are they hiding the money underneath the retractable pitch? They haven't spent money for years, Tottenham. So they probably are in a healthy position. But I do think it becomes a bit of a tightrope with Spurs. If they aren't able to get Champions League football, it does become a tightrope and they do find themselves in big trouble there. But look, Marmoush is certainly a player I would have had at Liverpool. Sleepy James has I've seen 100 million for the both. I mean, it would be a surprise to me if they then went on to sign Cody Gakpo, considering what's that? 85 million on Fernandez. Is it 85 million as well on Tonali? They brought in a host of centre backs. I think it was Van Heck for 60, but Vuskovic goes out to kind of negate that. Big wages, I'm sure, for Andy Robertson, Senesi as well, big wages. So I think it's hard for me to imagine that they will then be able to come in and pay the type of money that means Liverpool would actually be willing to deal on losing Cody Gakpo, just because if Minter, an injured Yankuba Minter, is the best option available to Liverpool, then they are going to need Cody Gakpo at the very least until January. And by the way, I should make it very clear with Gakpo, if Liverpool sign Minter and Bai and Barcola, or even they just, okay, no, because I think that's unrealistic. We're not going to sign the three. But if Liverpool sign Minter and Barcola, or Barcola and Mbai, and they run with that and Gakpo until January, and it's clear at that point that Mbai is an absolute superstar, Barcola's taking the league by storm, then Gakpo's value is fine. You know, he's got 4 years left on his deal. His value is still going to be safe. So I think at that point, then you look at selling him. But I just think it's absolutely nuts. Look, I don't make the decisions, and you never know what Liverpool are going to do next. But I really, really struggle to see how Tottenham could then after putting that level of money down for Savinho and Marmoush, then have the spare cash to come back in for Cody Gakpo. Right, guys, time to move on from Tottenham. I sense that none of you are big Tottenham fans. Cole says, defo a red Lola hate chatting about Spurs, wish they were playing Lincoln City this season. There you go again, saying hate chatting about Robbo and their ranks. I know, Cole. It just doesn't feel real. It really, really, really doesn't feel real. And they are lucky. They really are. But look, this is out of character for them, and I don't think spending big hasn't helped Chelsea. It hasn't helped Manchester United for all these years, and it didn't help Liverpool last season. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all is going to work out. But yeah, I think if this happens just purely because of the economics, I could be wrong. I don't have access to any particular special information, but I just don't see Spurs being able to afford Gakpo, because I think Liverpool are then in a situation where they can say, right, well, you've paid £93 million for a fella that scored 3 Premier League goals ever. We think our guy who helped us win the league and scored 18 Premier League goals is in fact worth 100 and whatever million. So that deal is just frankly becoming silly. And if Liverpool still want to sell Gakpo and Spurs still want to buy him next summer, then that can certainly still happen with the 4 years left on Gakpo's deal. Let's move on to a player now who I think I've spoken about him with some of you guys over on EPL Index, and that is Allan Elias. He's very much in the Rayan mould. And my kind of interest in this player came about because of people talking about, who is the next Rayan. And this has been reported in The Athletic that Manchester City are working on a deal to sign Palmeiras winger Allan Elias, who apparently Liverpool were in advanced talks for at the end of the season for around about 35 million. So suddenly his value has skyrocketed. Release clause of 100 million euros, while Tottenham advanced for Savinho. I mean, that feels astonishing to me, because you could say that the Savinho deal at Manchester City hasn't really worked out because Savinho doesn't have the experience or the pedigree to really, really, really kick on in a Manchester City team full of superstars. But then they're doing the same thing in signing Allan Elias, albeit it probably is a little bit different because with the signing of Savinho, they were signing him from their sister club, Girona. Couple of questions here. Lee Wizkid says, hi Lola, where's Scarlett? Scarlett is at home, Lee. We just had dinner together out with our dad. She's now at home. She's going to be live on EPL Index here on Saturday night. So you'll see her again then, and you'll see her on the Goal Difference show on a Monday night. Me and her we'll do it together on a Monday night. But yeah, we're on our own. I'm on my own tonight, and she'll be joining me. But thank you very, very much for keeping me company. What do I think about Man U trying to sign an injured player? Up the Reds 977, you'll have to tell me which player that is because I wasn't aware of them trying to sign an injured player. But we are going to come on to Manchester United, so everyone hold on to your hats because we're going to be talking about the club that we hate. But as I said, this is an EPL channel. With time, you're going to be hearing from fans from other clubs talking about their clubs. We obviously have our fun Liverpool space, but this is an EPL wide space where we talk about the whole league. But really, I understand the league as everything, how it affects Liverpool. So that's the perspective from which I will be talking about it. But you will meet other creators on this channel who have their own perspectives on it. But yeah, so let me just come for a moment back to Allan Elias, and that is to say that I really wanted Liverpool to sign him. He's very, very much in the Real mold. He's big, he's powerful, he's aggressive, he's taken the Brazilian league by storm. But boy, oh boy, is that a lot of money. That is a lot of money to be buying a player out of Brazil when you think of the money that City managed to sign the likes of Endrick, Vinicius, Rodrigo out of Brazil, because how he can already be 100 million, I just do not know. But yeah, the figures really are starting to get quite bonkers, to be honest. And the fact that Manchester City are going straight to this player makes me a little bit frustrated because it feels like Liverpool could have anticipated. Liverpool could have gone for this player in January. Liverpool could have gone for Ryan in January because Ryan only moves to Bournemouth in January. Or Liverpool could have been the first to this player. Because if he's a right winger, that's Manchester City consider good enough, especially because Liverpool considering kind of unconventional solutions at right wing, then this feels like a player really that Liverpool could have looked at. So it hurts me a bit to see that he's linked with Manchester City, and it hurts me a bit to see the fees involved. But then again, to bring it back to another Liverpool perspective, I do think Liverpool are quite entitled to ask for massive money for Cody Gakpo because of the benchmark being set by these figures. But look, it'll be really interesting to see how this one plays out because Palmeiras currently have no intention to sell, although I do suspect if City were to offer anywhere near that release clause, they would have to rethink purely because that is life-changing money for some of these Brazilian clubs, although they do have Club World Cup money, Palmeiras. Razzle Dazzle, a Tottenham fan. Welcome to the chat, my friend. You say Mbai looks levels above Allan. I think that's a fair point. And Mbai has done it in Europe, and some of his best performances have come in the Champions League. I think the AFCON performances is another feather in Mbai's cap, and it's worth saying that for an 18-year-old, he actually is quite experienced, Mbai. But I just think it gets to a point where you're looking over at Manchester City making these deals, and you're thinking, what's making them feel willing to take this risk on a player straight out of the South American market? Well, they're willing to take this risk because they think he's going to be special. And we can be reductive about it and say, oh, they're replacing Savinho with Savinho. And Savinho is not, by the way, his level is not necessarily reflected in his output. But I think it's not always as simple. Just because he's Brazilian doesn't mean he's the same as Savinho. So I think it's a complicated one. I think if City are willing to do this, it's because they think he's really special. And by all accounts, within Brazil, around Brazil, they think of this player as the next Ryan. Razzle Dazzle, you say Allan looks like a scruffy Savinho with less control. Even the City fans are saying it as well. Fair enough. I mean, if I were City, I wouldn't be thrilled, if I'm honest, because I think the reason that they're willing to sanction the departure of Savinho and of Marmoush is because these players haven't been able to impose themselves as part of the City squad, which, by the way, I hope there aren't any City fans in the chat. City fans in the chat, make yourselves known if you are, although I don't think there are any of them in the world really either. So I don't think they really exist. I think they're a myth. I think that I won't carry on with that. But anyway, I don't think there are many Manchester City fans to be offended by this. But the level of spending of Manchester City in the last 2 years or so since that disastrous January window when things are going horribly wrong and they basically buy players to bolster their position in the Champions League, the spending's been outrageous, egregious, atrocious. And this feels like more of that trend. They bought Vitor Reis, I believe, straight out of Brazil. He's barely had a kick. I think he went on loan to Girona last year and was good, but I don't think he doesn't look to me to be part of Manchester City's first team plans. But you can basically go through blow for blow in that window, that January window, that frantic trolley dash window. Nico Gonzalez looks like they're going to sell him to Newcastle. Savinho, I think he was bought in the summer, but he looks like he's going to be sold to Spurs. Marmoush, they're looking to flog to Spurs. Who else is there, guys? Kusanov's probably, you could say, a success. but I'm trying to think. Vitor Reich hasn't really made a claim for himself. So it really does just look profligate. And I think Razzle Dazzle, I take your point here. And thank you, by the way, for being a rival fan and being in the chat. We are a welcoming platform for all fans of different clubs here. But yeah, I think it could well be a wasteful one. I just think for Liverpool, who are actively looking for right wing solutions, this could have been one that could have been a smart one to get in ahead of other people. Because if he's good enough for Manchester City, then I think he's good enough for Liverpool, especially if Liverpool were already looking at him. Razzle Dazzle says, by the way, Spurs are signing Savinho for 83 million to lower the cost of Marmoush. He has a 15% sell-on clause. Fine, but I still think that the point of that is, well, it's still a huge fee. It's still a huge fee. I think you could say that you're getting a good deal on the Marmoush fee, but then Marmoush is 27, big wages. Omar Marmoush as well. So look, I'm sure there are some positive economics involved for Spurs, but frankly, 83 million, my friend, for Savinho feels like an absolutely bonkers fee for a guy that's got 3 Premier League goals, no matter whether you're throwing Marmoush in, because Marmoush hasn't had a look in at City. And that is an indictment that the two of them are not good enough for Manchester City. D-Select says Gay and Semenyo are great signings. To an extent they are. To an extent they are, D-Select. You know, Mark Gahey is Premier League quality, but I think you've seen the ceiling of Mark Gahey, and I think all of a sudden when you see Jeremy Jacquet in a Liverpool shirt, you go, I think there are levels, and I think Mark Gahey is what he is. He's not gonna get any better. And he's already made some mistakes, already been exposed when he's been out of that back three that he was used to playing in at Crystal Palace. He hasn't kicked a ball in pre-season. I don't think he's quite the all-conquering star at the heart of the City defence that is going to carry them for years and years and years. I could be wrong, but I just foresee some issues for him, especially as the league becomes increasingly physical. He is short for a centre-back. Semenyo, I'm not going to disagree with you there. He's a fantastic signing. Another one I absolutely wish Liverpool could have been in for with the release clause. But yeah, those two, I suppose you can probably say, are successful, but in that span of spending that goes back to the Savinho summer, I think City have had a lot more misses than hits. Dave YNWA says, Lola, have you heard of a player called Dario Osorio, a South American player who looks really good and only 22 years old, going for 17 million, plays in Denmark, Midtjylland? I have, Dave. I actually spoke about him on my stream last night over on EPL Index. He's certainly be a player I'd be interested in. He's certainly a player who is touted for a move to the Premier League. But as I said, a man whose opinion I really, really respect about football, and that is Sam Maguire, formerly of EPL Index, of course, doesn't think he's good enough and ready to make that step. So I think you slightly create a problem for yourself if you have too many players on board that you need to bed in and take risks with and are young and need time to adapt. I think he'd be better served going to a Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, getting the game time that he needs with less scrutiny to really kick on and develop. Caulfield says Grealish was going to be mega at City, didn't work out for him. Yeah, that's a wasteful signing. Razzle Dazzle, I take your point about Doku, but I don't think, I think 85 million would still feel like a lot for Doku as well. And that's Jeremy Doku that we're talking about, somebody who on his day is absolutely unplayable. So I think it is an overpay from Tottenham, but as we've discussed, Tottenham are in a situation where they need the players in, they want the Premier League experience, they think Savinho is going to kick on. But to be honest, I find it hard to imagine a world in which Spurs are selling him on for a profit, even in the inflated market, because it's a little bit like Chelsea sometimes do. They seem to go and pay what the player will eventually be worth. So they might get their money back, but I don't know if they'll ever make a buck.